Hello everyone, thank you for joining us for today's webinar. Today's topic is Microsoft SharePoint Lab. This is the fourth session. This is a part of an ongoing series we'll be doing every other week moving forward. We're very glad to have you here with us today. My name is Jack Reedy. I'm Senior Business Developer here at TLC Tech. To keep everything on track and not go over the allotted time, we will be muting all participants for the duration of this webinar. After each section, we will take a few questions related to the topic. If your question is not answered, there will be an opportunity to ask questions at the end of the webinar during the Q&A segment. If you have a question, please type it into the question pod of your GoToWebinar control panel. We will be sending out an email 1 hour after this webinar with a link to a survey. It would be very useful for us if you'll reply to let us decide future webinar topics. At this time, I would like to introduce you to today's instructors. We have with us Michael Nelson, President and Founder of TLC Tech, and Hector Fanas, the Operations Manager for TLC Tech. We are a Sacramento-based IT company dedicated to helping businesses grow and thrive through Microsoft integrations, managed IT services, and cybersecurity solutions. And without further ado, I'll turn it over to Michael, who will share with you our agenda in Microsoft SharePoint.
Thank you, Jack. Jack, you just to make sure everybody can see my screen right now, you should see the login to the beginning of getting into Office 365. A little bit of housekeeping. So Hector's on this call. So the previous webinars have been on Microsoft Teams. We're doing Microsoft SharePoint today. I'm really strong in Teams. Microsoft SharePoint I use on a very regular basis. We do for the business. But there is a whole lot of information available inside of SharePoint. Hector is our resident expert on SharePoint, so he is here today kind of as my safety net to make sure that we can answer any and every question that you all have. And he's also going to let me know if I venture into an area in SharePoint that actually requires elevated administrator permissions or elevated permissions from a normal user, so that you kind of know it's going to be mainly focused on the user perspective side, but if I stray into some other areas, then he'll go ahead and let us know there. Again, like I said, we're going to go on the user side of SharePoint. On the admin side, and with admin access, there's a whole back-end control that manages policy, security settings, and a whole lot of other features that are available that can be turned on or off. We're not going to go, that's not going to be in the scope of today's webinar. This is more on the user perspective side. Again, as Jack said, any questions, you've got your questions area. Go ahead and type in any questions that you have, and we will answer those as they come in. So the first thing I'm going to do is log into my site. I'm doing this because I want to point out this little piece right here is, I had logged in earlier to this, so it didn't force my two-factor authentication because it knew I had already logged in this morning. We do have two-factor authentication turned on in this account, which again is a reminder for all of you, especially with so many of us now working remote. Security is becoming more and more and more important. In 2 webinars from now, we're going to go over the Office 365 ecosystem, which is, this is part of it, this front-loading page. I'm going to start though going into my SharePoint, and this gives me all of the sites that I have available to me. Now, there's going to be 2 sites that we're going to be looking at today. There's 2 types of sites that we're looking at today. One is called a team site. The other is a communication site. The team, which is, I hate the fact that they named it because of Microsoft Teams. They are not related. The idea behind a team site is that it is meant for interaction amongst members. So people are going back and forth, they're uploading, sharing documents, doing all of these kind of things, versus the second site I'm going to show you, which is a communication site, which is more about presenting information to your staff. That may be something like an HR site where they've got documents that they need to download, news, updates, things like this that don't necessarily need interaction. So I'll go ahead and start with the test site. Let me back up and open that in a fresh window. Okay, so I'm going to do the test site and I'll do the communication site. So going into the test site, so you can see here the navigation. I've got on the front page, if any of you have already used SharePoint, you're used to seeing documents, you're used to seeing the documents. That's what almost everybody uses. So the basic overview is I'm going to start with our training outline. So I've put this in here. So today, this is what we're going to be going over. We're going to do the overview, how we navigate, working with documents, SharePoint libraries, configuring your profile. We're talking now about the different types of sites, and then we're going to do how to do the following things: uploading documents, syncing data from this SharePoint down to your local machine, co-authoring, attaching documents through Outlook that are part of SharePoint, saving directly into a SharePoint site from other applications, sharing documents with outside people, adding groups, changing your views, the recycle bin, and then doing a search feature. So what you see here on this kind of a site is we have documents. This is a document library. This is where we keep all of our documents. For many of you, that's like currently you may be using a network drive for that. We've got a photo library in here. I can see documents that have been shared with us. For any of you that like using OneNote, you can have a OneNote document also embedded into the into a SharePoint site. You can do news. If I go back up to the front page, you'll notice I have quick links. I have my documents folder. I did a quick little survey that built in here. So you can see this is much more being utilized as an interactive place where people share and interact with the data. Alrighty, so let me now jump over to a communication site. And if you notice, this is graphically very different. Communication sites, both can be made graphical, by the way, but the communication site is meant to make it easy to present information to your people. I want to point out that the navigation on a communication site is at the top of the SharePoint site versus a team site, it's on the left-hand side. We'll keep looking at those kind of things. So for example, I've got my upcoming webinar series, Get Inspired. I've got links to the future events in here. I can get to documents. So there's still a lot of the same types of information. It's presented in a different fashion though. So if I click on the webinar series, this one, if you notice, took me to the same agenda that we looked at on this site. So we've got two different sites. You can cross-link between different places and different things. So in here, if you'll notice, the upcoming webinars, that's a hyperlink. And what it's doing is it's opening a Word document that's inside one of the SharePoint libraries. The reason that I'm pointing out that we've linked to this document, how many of you have had the experience where you're trying to get information to an audience, your internal audience, you're sending the information back and forth, but the document actually needs to be updated. So if you're in a SharePoint site and you created a schedule of events, you'd have to go in and update the events. If you link to a page like this is a Word document that I can allow other people to access. So instead of now having to go and update it back and forth via email and then go into the website and update it on the SharePoint site, we can simply just make a link to it from this main page and go and update the document itself, always in the same location. So it makes it easier to be able to share information. And Hector, pop in anytime you want to expand on anything that I'm talking on here. So let me keep going here. We've got the welcome to the webinar series that linked over. The team site. Also, this was actually built in when I built the site, a SharePoint lookbook. This is just different ideas. If you notice, it linked me outside to Microsoft.com, but this is to get inspirations of different ideas and things that can be built inside of SharePoint. Okay, final, I've got my events. I can click down on an event and it gives me, so I've got the graphic in here, the date. I can add this directly to my Outlook calendar, and I made a hyperlink directly to the registration page for that event. So you can have it really be interactive, not just with your internal SharePoint site, but with outside sites as well. Hector, did you have a comment there?
Yeah, and one part to keep in mind, everything that you're seeing here, you're not limited to only these options. There's more advanced options and placement of all these different modules, of this different section. Your welcome webinar, you can put that on your document side, so you're not just limited to having it on your communication site. You can have it on your regular side. You can create you can develop multiple phases on a single site, so you don't have to have multiple sites. It's great to have multiple sites, but you can have all these options also on your single site.
Right, and one of the advantages, so there's pros and cons to doing multiple sites versus one site. One of the things about having different sites is that you can have differing types of permissions. You can also do that inside of a single site. So don't want to confuse the issue too much. There are lots and lots of ways to slice and dice this. You will notice some consistent things like the documents. We still have a documents library, same like the other. I added on this one a training calendar. That's where I got those events from. So I can add training calendar events in here so that if you've got a calendar of events for your company, you could do that. That could also be put into a team site as well. So a lot of these functionalities will cross between the different types of sites. There are pros and cons to each. We're not going to go into those vagaries. I kind of wanted to give you all a high-level overview of the look and feel to give you an idea of what was possible. The other thing, by the way, on the poll, we've got a poll that we're going to do at the end of this webinar about the timing for future webinars. We're going to be doing them every 2 weeks for an hour. The poll we did last time was, what do you want to see? And we got great feedback from you on that, and the upcoming webinars are based upon that poll. I want to know if you'd like to have them always on Wednesdays from 10 to 11, or if you want me to vary the days, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. So we'll get to that poll at the end of this webinar as well. So I'm going to go back over. So I'm on the team site now. Are there any questions about the communication site? Do we have any questions so far, Jack?
None yet.
Okay, so pop in any questions you have them. So I'm going to move back over to the team site because this is mainly what you're going to see. This is often the kind of website, SharePoint, that you are probably already using if you're using it. Again, if you notice, I've got my menus on the left. I've got settings up here at top. I've got myself up here. Working with documents, so I've got a documents library. These are just the normal kind of documents that we're used to. So I want you to notice right here, this is laid out in the folder view. So I can click through any of these folders, get to my documents. Okay, I can jump back up, but now I'm going to look at the photo library. What I want you to notice here is that it's laid out differently. It's still a library, but I chose this library to show us thumbnail images, and I uploaded some of the images from one of actually that was the Greece trip. And I'll show you how to upload things as well. But the point that I wanted to make here is that different libraries can have different looks and feels and layouts to them. You'll also notice that as we go along, you have the navigation this way, and I'll talk a little bit more about that. Actually, let me show you now. So you notice I'm in the Documents folder. I'm doing folder navigation. Folder 1, I'm going to go into folder 2, folder 3. What I want to point out is what we call the breadcrumb trail. So this is showing you where you are in the navigation. I can click on any of these to jump back around. So I can go up to folder 1. I can keep clicking back down, but instead of going back, I could just jump up to that folder. I can jump straight back up to the top. So you get the breadcrumb that follows you here, and it's a really easy way to be able to navigate around. We've talked about the different behaviors of the different kind of libraries. So libraries, I want you to think about as kind of buckets where you hold information, and buckets can have different kind of behaviors. Hector, I think, is going to talk a little bit more about this. Some ideas that you might consider, though, you might have a library for templates that your company would use. So if you've got Word templates, Excel templates, kind of templates that you use within your company, you could have a templates library. You could have your SOPs, the standard operating procedure library. That's where you hold all of your SOPs. You could have your training videos library. One of the future webinars we're going to be doing is on Microsoft Stream, which is where you can do all of your videos inside of Microsoft 365. You could have a library that links over and pulls data from Microsoft Stream into a library for videos. Hector, you want to add anything else in there?
Nope, that's actually pretty straightforward with the library, since it's a separate quote unquote folders, a library of folders. You can select different permissions. So if you are creating a form library that everybody in the company uses, you can pretty much just have it as a read only, so no changes are given. And that is the great thing about the security on SharePoint, and creating this library, so no changes are done by everybody. It's just the permitted personnel that has access to those forms, those templates, and then everybody can use them when they're needed, separate from the regular document libraries.
And being that we've done service tickets for most of the people on this phone call, I know on this webinar, I know we have seen plenty of tickets where somebody said, could you go to the backup and pull this previous version that somebody overwrote accidentally? That's a great way to deal with these kind of issues as well, is A, we can prevent them from being overwritten because they don't have the permissions, but B, remember, and I'll point this out in the how-to, we've got version history control in here, which is a really awesome thing as well. Okay, any questions so far? Otherwise, I'm going to jump into the how-to part of the webinar.
None yet.
Okay, so let me see, how to configure your user profile. So I want to point out, if you noticed here, the SharePoint training outline was put up here by me on June 3rd, and it's had 20 views. And you see my photo in here. Where that comes from is I can go into and update my account. Okay, it wants me to re-log in here. And if I go into my personal info, this is where that's where I put the photo. I can put information, my department, occupation. I could put in an address. One thing, especially in this COVID world right now, is that a lot of people are relying on cell phones. It's really easy if somebody had their mobile phone in here and everybody in your company was using SharePoint and everybody had updated their profile, you'd be able to quickly go find their cell phones or contact information, alternate email if something happened there. So that's where you can get your basic information here. The other thing, and I'm only going to touch on this very, very briefly as a teaser, is I can also go into my Office profile, which takes me into a spot called Delve. It wants me to continue authenticating. This shows me a lot more information, and we're going to be going into this when we talk about the Microsoft 365 ecosystem, because this is part of the whole Office 365 ecosystem. But this is where you can put even more information. So my profile allows me to, oops, closed up that site. The profile is what will let you see my picture show up to take care of issues. It's a really good way for people to visually be able to see who's updated the document, who's last worked on it, who owns the document. And it makes for a visually more appealing site. So we already talked about navigating using the breadcrumb. Again, this is just going down, and you can click around this way. Okay, so that's navigating. Now I want to do some uploading. So I'm going to go ahead and go into the photo library. And I have a couple of different ways I can do it. I can upload an individual file at a time, or I can upload an entire folder. So I had a quick folder created for the Costa Rica. You notice that at the folder level, it's saying upload. So it's going to grab the entire folder here. Yes, I want to go ahead and upload that. That's right here. It's telling me it's uploading 4 items. It's a folder and 3 photos. You'll notice in here that right now it says 0. It's still uploading photos. Now I have 3 photos that have been uploaded. So now again, this follows the same kind of behavior that it will present this, because again, we said the photo library has these behaviors. Display these as photos, to display the thumbnails. So that's how we can get that look. Again, you notice that I have the breadcrumb trail, so I can go in there. If I went ahead and said upload a file, I can do the same thing. And when I got to photos, it won't let me upload that because it knows it's a folder. But if I wanted to upload an individual item, then I would do it that way. So it would upload and it'll put it on this front page. So shows up there and it says when it was updated. You can see when these were updated, modified. And again, we have the same kind of things with version control here. Is if I go in, am I jumping ahead? No, I'm actually in the right spot here. So when we're inside the documents, I now have additional menus that I can go in here. I can say open, and I can open it in the browser, which again, if you recall back to the Teams webinars, you have a app, which is the web-based app built into the browser. You don't need anything installed on your machine for that to work, or you can open it up in the application, which is installed on your desktop. So this would launch Microsoft Word on my desktop using the application. Again, functionality between the web apps and the installed applications is getting closer and closer. Word is, I'd say, probably 80 to 90%. Excel is the one that's still got, any of you that are the Excel gods, if Joe's on the line, he would never use the app for Excel because it just doesn't have the same level of functionality. But this is how you can decide straight out of the gate, how do you want to open it up directly from the app or directly in the browser. I can also go into, again, we talked about the version history. This will show me, oh, I didn't make any changes to that. This will show me any changes that have been made to it. So the reference that I just made before about somebody overwriting a document, this is a very easy way to be able to go back. This allows us to choose restore, and then it'll tell me, do I want to do replace the current version? I can choose to replace, I can view it, do a save as, save a new document. So there's lots of options you have in that. The other thing that I really like in here is that you can click on this, go to, again, remember the 3 ellipses, we talked about that. You saw that a lot in Teams. You're going to see that in the entire ecosystem of Office 365. Is going into details. And what this one does is it gives me a little preview. It also tells me who has access to this document, and it allows me to be able to change this access. Hector, I'm in more of an admin area here right now, yes?
To an extent, yeah, but still visible to who the users that have permissions to it.
Okay, so if, let's say that we were in a folder that had kind of your main users were view only, but then you had a group of admins, the admins might have the permissions to be able to share it with other people, whereas the main users would not. So that would be how managing access. It'll give me the properties, the name, then I can also see more activities. I can see when it was edited, who created it, who edited this. I've been the only one on this particular document, but this activity gives you all of the history there as well. So it gives you a lot more wealth of information this way.
I do have a question from Kelly.
Okay.
If you were to double click that file, would it open in the browser or app first, or is that able to be customized?
Great question. If you click on it, it will by default open it in the browser. Hector, I don't believe that can that behavior be changed so it always launches the application instead of the inline app?
There is a pop-up that can be generated, that will give you the option. Do you want to open on the web application or open it on the
Okay.
on the website?
So the default behavior is it'll do it in the browser, but we can do some customizations. By the way, this is the next training that we're going to do is going to be on OneDrive. That's the quick agenda for that. I'll be sending that out at the next at the email that comes out in about an hour after the webinar. Okay, so that's a great question, Kelly. So that's how you can do it. You have the option there. Manage and access version history. Okay, I want to go into synchronizing documents. I'm going to show you right now, if you notice. Okay, so let me actually turn something off here. Give me just a second. Sorry, I thought I had turned this off yesterday. Okay, so right now, I am not synchronizing. Now, in my own company, we've talked before, TLC Tech, these are our primary, these are the main systems that I use with inside of SharePoint. I've got my OneDrive. Now, what I'm going to show you is I'm going to go ahead and synchronize this library, and it's very simple. You have to have Microsoft OneDrive installed, which by default everybody does. You may not be logged in, just a caveat. All you have to do is click sync, pops up, says it's going to open Microsoft OneDrive. You say okay, and then if you notice, once I say yes, what happens is it just opened up TLC Tech Cloud. So it gave me now the new SharePoint site that I just synchronized. Again, I'm in right now, I'm in the test SharePoint site. I've got the test SharePoint site here. I'm synchronizing the documents. Remember, course outline, folder navigation, training, upcoming. Here I have all of those. If I click in here and I create a new folder, that will go ahead and synchronize up to the SharePoint side in the cloud. That'll take just a minute. It'll show up on the other side. You can see that it's still doing the synchronization right here. Again, because I just turned on synchronization, it's going through and it's verifying everything has synchronized. So it's a little bit slower at the first when you first synchronize, but after that, it's anywhere from 5 to 30 seconds typically. So I can add documents this way. I can create a new document just like we're used to doing Word doc. So I can create new documents this way, and then when I go back over to the SharePoint site, you see that my new folder is already there and my new Word document is there. And that's simply because I went ahead and created it inside the synchronized folder. For those of you that are used to having a mapped network drive, like an N drive or a P drive or an S drive, which I know many of you do, this starts replacing that. If you wanted to go purely cloud with your documents, this is the way to do it. So now people can navigate in. They don't have to go into the web-based part of the SharePoint. They can go into their machine like they're used to doing. Hector, anything you want to add there?
Nope. We'll be touching bases on the security for those in a little bit, so I'll chime in on that one.
Okay, so again, this is how I can, now that synchronized that library, the documents library. I can also do the sync to the photo library the same way. Go ahead and do that, and you'll notice here, bring up my folder. Now I'm going to have the photos. So I have the test SharePoint site, the documents library, and I have the test SharePoint site photos library. So that's how I synchronize those documents. Final reminder is the little cloud icon right here. What that means is that these documents are all up in the cloud. They have not synchronized down to my local machine. So they're not taking up disk space on my local machine. More and more, for a lot of you, we're buying all of the machines that we buy for you now have solid state drives. We don't want to buy huge solid state drives. You don't need them, they're more expensive. So what we do is keep all of the data stored up in the cloud. If I need access to it, all I have to do is go double click on it and it'll open it for me on my local machine. It just takes a second to download it. Once I've done that, it'll show that I have opened it on my local machine. That's what the little green circle with the white and the green check mark. My other option, let's say I'm on a laptop and I was going to be getting on a plane and I wanted to be able to work on this, I could go ahead and take that folder and say, hey, I want this always available. So always keep on this device. What that does is it now keeps a copy local on this machine. If I don't have access to the internet, I can still see that document. I can work on it, edit it, make changes to it. The minute I get back connected to the internet, it'll go ahead and upload those changes up to the SharePoint site. People always ask, well, what if somebody else has already worked on it? It will recognize there's a conflict. It'll point it out to you and say, hey, this document is different than when you did it. Do you want to combine them? Do you want to save a new document? So it doesn't just go overwrite if somebody else had already made those changes. So that's synchronizing. I know we have talked about this a little bit before, but I'm going to do it again. Hector, if you'd go into the course outlines, do you want to do that, or did we want to work on the PowerPoint presentation? Let's go ahead and do the PowerPoint presentation.
Yep.
Yeah, okay. So I'm going to open this up web-based. You notice this opened up in the web app. I could choose to open it up in the desktop app if I wanted, but Hector and I are going to work from this document. Now I've got this open. I'm on the second page. Hector is opening it up on his side, and in just a minute, as soon as he opens it up, we should see his icon show up right here on the top right that he's been logged in. So you can tell if somebody is on the same document. Hector, do you have that one open yet?
Yes.
Okay, there we go. So he just showed up with HF. He's authoring right here. I can go ahead and be authoring here at the same time. If I wanted to, I could add Michael. He could go and correct my spelling mistake so that it's not capital TH. We can both work on the document at the same time. I can tell, now I can be on this slide, and if you notice over here on the left, I know he's still on slide 2. Well, he just got off of slide 2. My guess is he's now on slide 3. Oh, now he's on slide, playing whack-a-mole. So you can tell which slide he's working on. We can also do this in a Word document, anything that is able to be shared through the Office documents. Word, Excel, PowerPoint, Publisher, all sorts of those kind of things, Visio, those can all be co-authored in Office 365. You can also do it with more than 2 people. I've done this where in some presentations, we've had 10 people open up the same Excel document and type in their name and address, where you've got 10 people working on the same document at the same time. That's more of a show off. It's not that you would do that often, but that possibility is there. I know we've talked about co-authoring in Teams. Any questions on that here?
Yeah, we have one from Yen. We have, is a second copy of a file, if a second copy of a file is stored somewhere else besides OneDrive for backup recovery, if a second copy of a file is stored somewhere else besides OneDrive for backup recovery, in case I need to recover after accidentally deleting it by accident.
Great question, and if you would hold that for a second, because I'm going to talk about the recycle bin, and we're also going to talk about backup. So I'll be getting to that in just a few minutes. I want to talk about, I'm going to open up, I've got Outlook open. So I've got my Outlook application standard. Instead of, I could see this Outlook web access, but I'm showing this to you in Outlook for a reason. Let's say there's a document that I want to a document in the SharePoint library or in one of the SharePoint document libraries that I need to attach to this document. So here I have the option, I'm going to attach the file, and if you notice, I can browse web locations. So I can browse into my TLC Tech Cloud. It'll show me recent folders that I've opened. So I'm going to go into the course outlines. It's going to navigate me directly into that one. I'm going to choose the OneDrive training. And if you notice, now I have an option. I can share the link or I can attach it as a copy. one of the things that tends to happen is people are very used to the old school way that you attach a document, send it to somebody, say, hey, will you make changes to this? Let me know what you want, what changes you want to make. They download it, they put it on their desktop, they make the changes, they open up they reply to your email, they attach the updated document, send it to you, you make your changes. This is back and forth, back and forth. The problem is that you can often lose which version of the document you're on. So if you're sending this internally, what you want to do is just share the link. So the really cool thing is it looks like it's an attachment, but when they open up that link, it's going to actually open the document from the SharePoint site directly. So when they make those changes, they're making it to the document in the SharePoint library. Part of what's happening when they're doing that, remember, is that you have the version control. So if I wanted to, if you're worried about them messing something up, again, you've got, this is under the course outlines, you've got versioning, so they could make the change. If you don't like it, you can just go back and say, put back the previous version. So it's a really good way to, A, not lose what's been recently done. You're keeping it always in the same location. If you're sending it to somebody on the outside, you can also choose the option to send it as a link. I'll show you that in a future webinar. That brings up, they have to validate that it is who they say they are. But again, I'm going to go ahead and say, okay, this time go ahead and let's do it. And I'm going to do, oh, I got into the wrong area. I can just attach sorry here guys, documents, course outlines. I could go ahead and say attach it as a document. So you'll notice this is a full-blown attached document, stands alone, not tied back to the SharePoint site. So once I've attached it as a document, I have pulled it out of, I pulled a copy out of the SharePoint site. This one, I have pulled basically a link to the document in the SharePoint site. So if they work on this one, that would not update the SharePoint site. If I updated that one, it would. Any questions on that?
Yes, and I realized I missed one from Chad.
Okay.
Once you've clicked sync online, will the online SharePoint site always be synced with the local machine, or does sync need to be manually clicked periodically?
No, it will be updated. There's a little icon that you'll see down in the bottom right-hand corner of your system tray next to your clock. It's a little blue cloud. Occasionally, it will want you to re-log in. I've done one time where I've noticed it's like, wait a second, why isn't that document there? And I realized that I needed to go revalidate my credentials. Remember, Office 365 wants to keep your data secure. The way that it does that is by validating who you are from time to time. I can log in web-based. I've been logging in from my home. It knows who I am. It remembered, so it didn't ask me to do the two-factor authentication. But there is a time limit on that, and I believe, Hector, it's about 30 days for forcing you to relog in.
Yes, it's 30 days minimum. So that can be expanded if you are like at the office. So from your IP at the office, that can be increased to up to 90 days.
And if Office 365 ever thinks you may have been something's funny, you've logged in from a different place than it expected, it does look for some security behaviors. It might ask you to re-log in to validate your credentials. Again, I'm at home. It knows my IP address. It knows this machine. So it's going to trust this machine more. If I logged into another machine that I've never been on before, yes, it's going to force me through the whole two-factor authentication again. So Chad, to answer your question, yes, it updates automatically in the background as long as you're connected to the internet. Occasionally, you will have to re-authenticate. And Jack, you said you had another question?
Yeah, one more from Kelly, and she asks, can you do both? And she means by sharing a link and attach a copy of the file.
Yes, you can, like what I just did here. So again, I could do, actually, let me make sure that I'm saying this correctly. TLC, I'm gonna go grab the cloud training agenda. Okay, so let me go in here, come on. Why is that not clicking out for me?
And after you go through that, I
Okay.
want to touch bases on something when it comes to sharing through SharePoint and the email.
Okay. So here again, now, yes. So Kelly, I can attach it as a document and a link. I would probably encourage you, and we can have an offline chat about this if you want, but I'd probably encourage you to do one or the other. I know I worked with one of our partners is doing a two-factor authentication project, and I had sent over a link to a document on our SharePoint site so that we could all work from the same thing. And that's kind of the reason for doing that. Just so you know, once they open this web-based, they can still save a local copy themselves if you've given them the permissions to do that. Hector, you wanted to point something out?
Actually, the last point that you just made, I wanted to point that out. If you notice on the screen there where it says organization can edit.
Good call. Yeah.
Yeah, when you're sharing it to that user or to the other party, you can change those settings just to increase your security. You can set it to only be able to read, to be able to write. So like that, you can they can download it and manipulate it. So it gives you that extra security permissions. So you can, if you don't want them to have that file anymore, you can take that power away as well. So now you're not just limited to sending that file, and now they have it. So now you can take it away when using the SharePoint share.
Yeah, and Hector, I'm going to jump into that area in particular, sharing with outside users here in just a couple of minutes. So we'll go a little deeper in that one as well. So that's how you attach documents through an application. The other thing I want to point out now.
One more question, actually, real
go
quick
ahead.
before you go to a new topic from
Yep.
Chad. When you email a linked document, will it open in the app or in the browser, or can you choose which way it opens?
Hector, I'm going to let you answer that one. I'm assuming it's going to open browser-based.
Yeah, it'll be, if you are linking it, it'll be browser based, but they will get the option to how they want to open it. It all depends on the permissions that you give them. If you give them full permission, they can download it, open it with their local application. If you give them read only permissions, they will be locked to the website to be able to view it on the website without getting a copy downloaded. But it's all based on the security policy that's been applied to that file.
And Chad, if you notice, I opened this up, it's going web-based into the web app, but you'll notice at the top here, I still have the option to open it in my desktop application. So even if it opens for them web-based, they'd still have the option to open it in the desktop application. And they're working on the copy. The reason you want to do it this way is, or send them the link instead of the actual attachment itself, like when I was showing that for Kelly. The reason to do this, even if I open this in my desktop app, I am still actually working on the document that's in the SharePoint library. So that's how you keep the I want to say elasticity, but that's not the right word. That's how you keep the same document always being worked on by everybody, is that you open it up this way. Again, launch it in the app, but I'm still working directly on the document that's in the SharePoint library. So that's another reason to do it that way. Any other questions before I jump into another section? Okay, so now if I'm in a Word document, so I've just got a new Word document that I launched, and I'm just going to do junk. So I want to save this. Most of us do save as, and we would save it into a network folder that we're used to. If you notice, I have my SharePoints and my OneDrives. So I can go directly into, I've got my sites, team site, and it's going to load up. Let me see, I've got my Word document. So now I'm in my documents folder. I've got the course outline. I'll go ahead and put it in there, and we're going to call this Office 365 Ecosystem. So from directly inside of the Word application, Word, Excel, PowerPoint, any of them, I can save directly into the SharePoint site. I don't have to log into SharePoint. I don't have to log in. Okay, sorry about that. I've got, because I'm logged into TLC Tech, .com and .us. It's messing with my permissions right now. But the point here is that I can save it directly as long as I'm logged in and I have the correct permissions. I can save it directly into SharePoint's Teams. Remember, I showed you this when we were doing the Teams training as well. So that allows you to save it directly into the SharePoint site. The other thing I can do is I could still do a save as. I could browse my PC, and you notice I still show up here my TLC Tech Cloud. I can go into the documents, course outline, and I can save it this way as well. So there's lots of different ways that you can save the document within Word, Excel, PowerPoint Publisher, all of those. And sorry, I've got the permissions issue. I'm not gonna get locked up on that one. So that's how we can save directly from an Office application, Word, Excel, PowerPoint Publisher, any of those. You can save directly into the SharePoint, OneDrive, Teams. There's lots of different places that you can save it, and that's how it's done. This is, again, part of that whole Office 365 ecosystem that I've been talking about. Any questions?
Yeah, we have one from Kelly. Do you know of or have anyone experienced any issues with accessing these browser documents from iPhones or smartphones?
No, that's one of the things I love about this. One of the things you guys have heard probably by now, all heard me use the term digital transformation, where we're helping our partners transform from the old file server, everything saved in the office. You have to do a VPN connection in to get to your documents, going into a digital transformation where you're using SharePoint, OneDrive, Teams, all of these things. I've got all of these apps installed on my phone. I've got them on this desktop that I'm using here. I've got my iPhone. I've got a Surface tablet, and I also have a Mac. I've got a desktop Macintosh as well. I can use any one of those systems to access any of my documents. It's really, Microsoft and Apple used to not get along. They buried that hatchet years and years ago. Everything that Microsoft does as far as SharePoint, the whole ecosystem, 365 ecosystem, is built to work on any platform, any device, any browser. The browser will be the only caveat. Older browsers, you might have one or two little things that they are assuming you're keeping up to date on your technology. But the point is, anywhere, anytime, any device, securely. That's the whole part of digital transformation. So Kelly, I hope that answers your question. If not, go ahead and pop up another question for me there. Okay, so now I'm going to talk about sharing documents with outside users. And for this one, I'm going to go into, yes, that's where I have it. Okay, so the PowerPoint presentation, I'm going to go ahead and share. Now, I have several options here. This is people in TLC Tech Cloud. That's the name of this organization unit. Again, reminder, we have tlctech.com. I don't want to use our company data folders and structures because we have a lot of your information, so it's not something I want to use on a public webinar. So this is our trial site. So in here, by default, I can share with anybody with a link. I can share with people with existing access, or I can say specific people. Now, specific people, and you'll notice this, anyone with a link is grayed out. There is a reason for that. So there's various levels of security that can be built, that are built in, that are optional within SharePoint. We can say it can be shared with anybody, and as long as they have a link, they can get in. Now, the problem with that is, let's say I shared a document with Kelly, and I said anyone with a link, and I give her the link. Kelly can then forward that email to 100 people. They have the link. That means they have the right to open up that document. So as we're setting up security for our partners, this is one of the things that we talk about, is that's how we keep that more secure. And now we really can trace who has access to what. So anyone with a link, by default, probably want to turn that off. There may be reasons for a particular library that you might want to make that more accessible, but that's we do those discussions individually. People in my system, basically people that were part of TLC Cloud, or specific people. If I say specific people, now I'm saying they have the option to allow editing. If I take that away, you notice I now have an option that comes up that says block download. This is a really incredibly cool thing, is if I shared this document with Kelly, I said she cannot edit, and I blocked the download. When she clicks on that link, it will bring it up in the browser. And so like I launched it inside, like you've seen me do before. I cannot print that document. I cannot download that document. I cannot do anything other than view it in the browser. So it adds a whole nother layer of security. People are like, well, couldn't they take a photograph? Yes, they could. Sorry, we can't stop that. But we can keep it from being able to be downloaded, manipulated, and shared with other people. So I'm going to go ahead and say she does have the ability to edit. I'm going to apply that. It'll ask me for the name, so I can send this to, I'm just going to do myself. Oh, no, it's wrong address. So this is my outside address. So I'm going to say send it to that person. Now, my policy does not allow me to share this with outside users. That is a policy we set up in this particular company to kind of show this to you. So those policies can be set that you can say, no, it cannot be shared with outside users. It can be, but here's the particulars of how it can be shared. One other thing I want to point out here is credit card information. Now, these are dumb credit card numbers. It's a dumb Social Security, and it's a dumb California driver's license number. It's close, but it's not close enough. Now, the reason I did that is you'll notice here, see that little minus sign right there? That's letting me know that there's secured information on here. So if I go to share this document, now I can still share it with people on the inside, but the minute I say specific people, I'm not a good typist today. It says, again, my policies, because it knows that I have credit card information. There are policies that we can put into place that identify, and I didn't do anything to this document other than put the credit card number in there. It identified that there was a credit card number, a Social Security number, and a California driver's license number, and the policy says that is not allowed to be shared with anybody outside the organization. So if you've got protected information in your organization, this is a really good way to make sure that it cannot be shared to the outside world. There's also the ability to, and I'm not sure if I've got this turned on, let me go into another folder, to label a document. Hector, can I do that from here?
Yes, you can.
And I do that, sorry, tell me where again?
Go to File. Then go to About or Info, yep. And Protect Document.
Okay, so this document I have now said is protected, and I can choose, we don't have particular labels set on this one, but we can set up labels that this would be executive only, this is confidential, this is internal use only, so that when your employees save a document, they can label it. So let's say HR can label documents that this is executive level only. The policy says no matter where this document is, correct me if I say this wrong, Hector, if it's labeled, there is a policy that says executive only, cannot be opened except by people that are a member of the executive security group. So if the document moves to the wrong area for some reason, it's still protected by the policy that says only the people in this security group can't be shared to the outside world. So it can really help protect your document and your data that way. Any questions there?
We are good.
Okay. A couple of quick things then is changing views. So I'm going to go back into the documents library, and you see my view right here that I can see who it was created, how long ago it was created, who created it. There's a lot more information available here, and I'm going to show you. So I'm going to go and say I'm going to add a column, show hide columns. And for this example, I'm going to do modified by, I'm also going to do item child count and folder child count. I'm going to go ahead and apply that. And you notice I now have added those 4 columns. I can now see when it was modified. I can also see who modified it. I can see how many items are in the folder, how many folders are within the folder. So let me click into the new folder here. You'll notice as I go down, I don't have any items. Oh, sorry, wrong one. Folder navigation. You'll notice I don't have any items in the next folder down, but I have 3 folders. Click in here. Here's my 3 folders. You notice no children, no children items, no children folder, but I do have a subfolder inside of this one. So this is a really easy way as you're navigating to see where you have documents, folders, how many items are in here. So you can change this view, you can move it around, you can, I can also move things up and down by moving it up around that way. Gives you a lot of different ways to slice and dice that view. Hector, anything to add there?
Not at the moment. On the future webinars that we'll have, we'll be touching bases on how can that be integrated with more of the automation and flows.
Awesome. Flow, that's an awesome tool. Okay, somebody had asked about a safety net for deleting items. So recycle bin is your safety net, and that is a 30-day safety net. When something gets deleted from the library, from anywhere in the SharePoint, it is saved for 30 days inside the recycle bin. After that, we have issues. We can't hold on, nobody hold on to all deleted items. So remember, you got a 30-day value there. This brings up the point that I want to make, that you always want to have a backup even of Office 365. So most of our partners are now moving, a year ago, 2 years ago, it wasn't quite as critical. But now with the security the way that is in the world, even Microsoft Office 365 is really starting to make a push. Look, people, you want to get this backed up to a third-party provider. So you had asked about keeping an offline copy. What we would suggest is using a third-party provider. Of course, we've got options for you that will back up everything in Office 365. That's all of your email, that's SharePoint, that's OneDrive, that's Teams. It's all of the data that you have in here. So even if it gets deleted from the recycle bin, we've still got access to it in the third-party backup system. So there's a couple of different ways to do that. And then the final thing is looking about a search. So if you notice on the top, I have search. I can do, let me see what comes up for team. So I've got the Teams notebook, I've got the SharePoint site, I've got the PowerPoint presentation. So these are the documents, that's all. I can look for files, I can look for sites, I can look for news. So this is the beauty. Hector might be able to give a better thing. The search feature in this is incredibly powerful. Hector, anything you want to add on to that one?
Yes. So when it comes to the search and SharePoint, I don't know if you have touched bases on the previous webinar. So that search bar that you get also when you log in to Office 365 can search. So that same search bar, there it is, perfect, can search all the way onto your SharePoint and Outlook, everything on the Microsoft ecosystem. So you're not just limited to that search within the site. You can be on your homepage without even clicking on the site, and it'll search for it.
Yeah, so there's some real powerful features. Again, this goes into the whole Microsoft 365 ecosystem. So we are coming up at the top of the hour. We are going to launch a quick poll. What I want to know, we have traditionally done these Wednesdays from 10 to 11. Jack is going to launch the poll. Fair warning, we've never done a poll in here before, so we are really hoping this is going to work the way we're expecting. Do you want to have this on Wednesdays at 10 o'clock always? Or do you want me to mix up the days and do it Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday? Can somebody do, it should have just popped up on your GoToWebinar, the little icon that you type the questions, you should see one that says poll. And if you open up the poll, you should see the two options. Awesome. So we've got 14% of the people voting. Okay, we've got 17, 21%. Awesome. Okay, I'm hearing. Okay, I don't know if they can see the options, the results or not, but we've got 34% of the people have voted. We've got 60% preferring always on Wednesdays. 30, yep, it's headed up into 70% always on Wednesdays. Okay, so right now we've got 52% of the people voting. Thank you for doing that. Okay, that's a pretty resounding number right there. If everybody, we'll give it another minute or two for people to vote, but it's looking like a majority, a very large majority would like it always Wednesdays at 10 a.m. Again, all of these are recorded. They're available on our website. I'll show you real quick while the rest of you are finishing voting. You go to our main website, go under Tech Articles, Webinar Training. That's where we put all of the previous training sessions, and usually we get it up within, I try to have it up by the Friday after we do it. So that's where you can get to the webinars. They will always be recorded. So any questions that showed up, Jack?
Let me see, 1 second. Nope, you're all good.
Okay, I'm going to leave. I'm not going to end this yet for if anybody else wants to do the polling. Otherwise, this concludes the webinar. Thank you very much for your participation. The next webinar, you're going to get an email. I'm going to go change the date really quick because we do have 76% of you that would want it always on Wednesdays. So we'll go ahead and move that date. You'll get an email within the next hour saying with a link to register for the next webinar. Thank you very much. Love having you all here, and pop me an email if you have any questions, comments, or feedback. Thanks, everyone.